Altitude Sports Grill is where Albuquerque's sports fans won't miss a game. With locally crafted brews on tap and refreshingly crisp cocktails. Located in Hotel Cascada, Albuquerque residents find a staycation worth staying for. Catching Lobo sports, enjoying a beer on the beach, or wiping out, Hotel Cascada is home to your urban adventure. Affordable guest rooms, no-hassle water park parties, and much more.
Visit the Frontier Restaurant. Due to heavy construction on Central, take lead or coal coming north or south. The Frontier Restaurant. Get your Frontier fix on.
Now there's an easier way to find deals at great New Mexico restaurants. DineNM.com. Just use your smartphone. Go to the site, download the app. No purchase or printer necessary. DineNM.com. The easiest way to save money when dining out.
Ladera Golf Course on Albuquerque's west side features spacious greens, 27 holes with outstanding practice facilities, and beautiful views of the Sandia Mountains, nestled at the foot of the volcanoes. Our 300-person banquet room and bridal suite is perfect for all occasions. Customize your room with color, chair covers, table linen, dinner, and champagne. Visit our cafe and bar with daily specials and happy hour, plus our full-service golf pro shop. For tee times and more information, call 505-836-4449.
Don't forget, every Proview Network sporting event is on sale at our DVD store. Go to www.proviewnetworks.com to buy your DVD today.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Sports Desk. It is March and we are talking basketball. Guess what? March Madness is here, and the madness is not college, it's high school, as we're going to go over all the brackets in high school basketball. The NMAA state playoffs are upon us, going on at multiple venues. I'm Scott Galletti along with Ed Nunez, and Ed will start off the show by saying, wow, you know, the selection seeding show was outstanding over the weekend, and now here it is. Games going on all week long.
You know what? Here it is. You know, I think we talked about this in January. We couldn't believe how fast the season was going. We said before you knew it, it would be time for seeding and selection show. That passed. You know, we missed you on Sunday. I know you were traveling with the Lobo baseball team, but we missed your input, and you have a lot of knowledge as far as the brackets and basketball, things like that. We missed that, so hopefully we can catch up today.
Well, it was fun, and we'll go over Lobo baseball and basketball later on in the program. But first things first, you know, it's always a fun time, and it was the first show since I've been with Proview that I was unable to attend, and I watched it on the bus, and it looked awfully doggone good. And you know, when you're going over so many different brackets, and it's just one sport, but it's boys and girls with all the brackets. That's a long show.
Well, you know what it was, and I thought, you know, Adam Deal again does a great job facilitating, gets everybody involved. But I also want to mention, you know, the producers, Jay Pohl, Alden Iowani, Dave Davis, Josh Brown, you know, our cameraman, Will Powell. We got so many people involved in Proview, and we're a team. And I think that's the most important thing. You know, we all stand behind each other. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for the producers and the directors, they do such a great job, you know, of doing what we do, and they're a big part behind the scenes. But I do want to mention them. If if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't even have the shows that we have.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you right out of the get-go: were there any surprises? And we'll also get into when we see the brackets. I'm not a big fan of district teams, especially district teams that just got through district playoffs, playing each other in the first round.
You know what? You mentioned that, and I've got two of those games on Friday and Saturday. I'm at Rio Rancho for Volcano Rio Rancho girls on Friday, and then Volcano Rio Rancho boys on Saturday. And you know what? When you said that, you're right, because you kind of saw each other 3 times. Now it's the 4th meeting, and you know it's like when you are waiting for your seed, I think you're thinking it's not going to be against your district. You're thinking it's going to be against another team.
Right.
Here's the thing, though. You still got to play. You got to play.
Oh, yeah, you definitely still got to play.
But I think you're right, though, because, and they said that the NMAA they've said in the past, they try to avoid, they do their best to avoid that. Sometimes things happen, and, they have a job, too, out there. Dusty Young and Sally Marquez, they have a very tough job making all these seeds and, in pairings.
Oh, and they do a great job. And the thing is, it's the criteria that it is right now. So, I mean, each team has to play the schedule in front of them. But still, when you look at it from a practical point, you go through district. District 1 is tough. So you go through district. Then you play the district playoffs, and you have to go through it all again and play each other. Now, all of a sudden, you wait for that selection seed. And guess what? You play a team that you just played a couple of days ago.
Right.
That's a lot to look forward to. And then, by the way, winner goes on, loser goes home.
That's right. The thing is, though, I think, and then here's the mentality, win or go home. That's and they always say that in the NBA playoffs, in March Madness for the college tournament. And it's the same kind of mentality you have here. Volcano Vista, we'll mention all the brackets later. Volcano Vista boys, they've kind of had a downward spiral the last month and a half. How do they get ready to play a very red-hot Rio Rancho boys team? About a month and a half ago, I had that game when they set the school record for 88 points against Rio Rancho. Rio Rancho returns the favor 2 weeks later, and ever since then, the Hawks have kind of, been in a tailspin. So, there's a lot of storylines behind each and every game, but that's just one that I'd mention.
If I were the Rio Rancho girls team, I'd be very, very concerned playing a team that is capable of making a run this time of year.
Well, Lisa Villarreal knows how to make runs, Scott.
Yes, she does.
She does, but here's the thing, I had a chance to talk to Rio Rancho head coach Scott Peterson last week at Cibola, somebody who I really, really like a whole bunch, former San Antonio Spurs scout, former coach at Hamas, former Valley assistant. He's in the second year of his program there at Rio Rancho. He's got some good players. I think he's very happy of where they're at. All you can do is play who's in front of you. Sometimes you're like, well, we'd rather not see them or see them. Here's the matchup. We've got the scouting report. We're very familiar with them. So that's all you can really do.
Absolutely. So in terms of teams that you're looking at, this team could have a shot. Who do you have right now?
You know what, right now, and Adam Deal asked me that on Sunday, and right now I've got, Rio Rancho. I talked to Wally Salata about a month ago, and I asked, is your team ready for another tournament run? They were an 11 seed last year. They made a nice tournament run. You still got Cleveland. You've got, Cleveland's a very well-balanced team. Oñate, Las Cruces under Will Benjamin. They had a late season run. They're 21-4. The other team that I didn't mention the other night, and I do want to mention, is the El Dorado Eagles. If they get hot, this is a team, Mike Muno, Tanner Carter, Trenton Gaither, Jalen Domino Lovato. I really like that team. When they're operating on all cylinders, they're as good as any team in 6A. I think, again, the other team, one more team, is the Albuquerque High Bulldogs. They made a nice run through the district tournament to win the championship. Right. They've got a big guy there. Marlon Cunningham's the best guy, big guy in 6A, although, the guy Carlsbad Boatwright's pretty tough. He's pretty good, too. So, they have two good guards. The thing that they're missing is that sniper. They're missing that outside sniper, but I like their guards, Jai Douglas and Randy Castillo. So keep an eye on the Bulldogs. I think that's a team that's worth mentioning as well. Yeah,
the past couple of years they had what could be construed as that sniper, but they still have a good balance of talent and guys that can drive to the basket.
No doubt about it. They can break you down. Both Castillo and Douglas can break you down. Yeah. I thought they might get a little bit more out of Daniel Chavez McCree, the transfer from Highland.
You didn't bring up Silas Cole either. Not as much of a scorer as he has been in the past, but he's done all the dirty work this year.
You know what? That's a great point. Silas Cole, I think he's been there with the 2-year letterman. Also, Lorenzo Cantoa comes off the bench. I love the way he hustles. And you know what? I think Coach Garcia looks at it like, okay, they got an 11th seed. We went through the district tournament, and we got an 11. I'm like, I kind of thought they might get a little bit higher. Right. He can use that as motivation. Coach Garcia, I talked to him this weekend at Manal, and he was very optimistic about Albuquerque High's chances. And I'm telling you, back in the day, Albuquerque High would pack the place. And maybe now, their fans, or legions of fans, will come out and support them. They're going to need it.
Let's take a quick break. We're going to look at the Dave and Buster's top 10 plays of the week and come right back on the Sports Desk.
atmosphere. Those two schools have great tradition.
Deep three by Eloy Medina is foul. Juan kicks it out to Patterson for three. Yes, sir. Clay's got the hot hand. 4 threes in the opening half. Make it 5. Yes, sir.
See if they could get.
He's going to go
Wow.
off the window.
What a finish.
Top, Newton, he is counting. Marcus Hill guarding. He gets past Hill. Kicks it ahead to Almalhi. Hurt gets it poked away by Munn. Here comes Hill in transition. And he'll send it in. Cunningham with the spike. After 5 charity threat. Baseball a half. Pass ahead to Hurt. And he flushes it. The little 5'10 guard sends it in. DeWeaver for the flush. Send it in.
The Barley Room, a proud sponsor of Proview Networks for over 9 years, is pleased to introduce Black Iron Catering. From weddings and family reunions to birthdays and office parties, Black Iron Catering is perfect for any event. Contact Jamie at 505-459-8259 and book your event today. Black Iron Catering. Let us bring our kitchen to you.
TurboThreads is a proud sponsor of Proview Networks.
Almost 30 years of experience means fast service, great prices, and a wide selection of apparel from t-shirts to performance sports shirts, even jackets and hats. They feature low minimums and no setup charges on most orders. TurboThreads is located at 1503 Golf Course Road in Rio Rancho, or find them on Facebook, online at turbothreads.com, or call 999-1234 for TurboThreads.
Gecko's Bar and Tapas, a proud supporter of Proview Networks. It's been a fan-favorite spot for food lovers and sports fans. With not one, but 2 great locations, including outdoor patio, an atmosphere you won't want to miss. Gecko's, off Academy and in Nob Hill. Terry Cosper Insurance Agency is a proud partner with Proview Networks and a proud supporter of New Mexico High School athletics. Terry's been a local farmer's agent for over 20 years for auto, home, life, and business insurance. Just like high school sports are important, so are teen drivers. For more information, call Terry or one of his licensed staff members at 898-5556. Quotes are available for you.
Gonstead Physical Medicine are healthcare professionals that create custom treatment plans for those diagnosed with spinal ligament injuries. We use chiropractic systems to ensure the best patient outcomes. Functional rehab exercises designed to improve the quality of daily activities. Trigger point injections that help alleviate pain and spasms. Non-surgical spinal decompression to minimize any disc bulges. And massage therapy for painful conditions and relaxation.
Does your provider have the therapies to address your problem? We do.
Contact us for a complimentary consultation.
And we're back here on the Sports Desk. Scott Coletti along with Ed Nunez. The crew is all here. Alden Iowani, David Davis, as always, doing a great job pushing the buttons, and they're also doing a great job at the little squiggly lines, the curtains, you name it, they got it for us. They keep us on our toes here, don't they, Ed?
Well, yeah, they do, and they've gotten real creative as far as coming in and out of breaks, and I love what they do.
Extremely creative.
Yeah, so like I said, just the greatest bunch of people you can be around, no question.
Let's start looking now at some brackets, as we have a lot to do here today. We're going to go to girls first, and we're going to start out with the lower bracket. There's the curtain, and there's the 1A girls. And you got Elida, the number 1 seed, Hondo Valley at the bottom there, number 4, Melrose number 2, and Roy Mosquero number 3. And when you look at Melrose, I mean, when it comes to basketball, Melrose always has to be talked about, but Elida is very, very strong as well.
I remember doing a championship a couple years ago with Melrose and Elida, and the thing I'm going to say about the lower bracket, and Manny Lucero and Richard Tripp broke that down, like they always do. But I got to say this: sometimes the smaller school brackets, I said this as an official, man, if those games mean so much to those towns. And, you mentioned Melrose. I think they've won several championships. And so, again, a great-looking bracket there. And, yeah, we expect some you got Elida on one side, and then you've got Melrose on the other. So that's going to be a really – and that's no guarantee, because we talked about upsets. You never know what's going to happen as far as what you called March Madness, even in high school.
And here's the thing, Ed, about these divisions, and we'll stay on here for a second. You get a team like Elida, you get a team like Melrose, throw in Hondo Valley, pick a team at the pit. They make it to the pit, and guess what? They might outdraw the 6A.
You know what? And if people don't think that fans matter, just look at Shiprock and Gallup.
All you got to do is look at how many buses are in the parking lot for each school. You got like 2 buses, one for team and one for cheerleaders and stuff. And then you got buses for fans. I mean, it's awesome, because there's so many buses of people. The parking lot's packed. You're thinking, this is the 1A, 2A game?
I think one of the things, Scott, is every player's goal, is in high school, was to make it to the pit. So when you come down, and I was lucky, I got to run down as a North-South All-Star. I came down with Highlands coaching staff. I came down as an official. I'm lucky. I got to go down, going down that ramp as a player. There's no high like that. When you run down and you see all the fans and you come down.
It doesn't matter what you're doing.
It doesn't matter.
As a broadcaster, I got chills when I walked down the bottom of the ramp and saw the fans congregating. And it's like, wow, I'm in the pit.
And you know what? You were a part of, when they several huge games, when you broadcast there. So you must have got goosebumps and
every
tingles
time I walk down there, every time.
So these players, when again, if you remember
it didn't matter if we were playing UC Riverside, Northern New Mexico, or BYU. I got chills.
Yeah, and so you know about that walk too. And so when they go down there and they hear all these people cheering for them. Holy cow, of course, Scott, the thing is, too, the depth perception, the shooting angles, they have to get used to that. Sometimes they're so pumped up. Adrenaline can only take you so far. It can. And then, after a while, you have to calm down, and you'll have a heart attack.
Right.
So, but when you mention the fans following, and you come down, here come, the Melrose Buffaloes, and the fans are, and you feel that? Man, that's good for 5. Greg Brown, the former Lobo great, would say the pit, when it was packed, was worth 10 points before the game. And, I don't know if it's the case anymore, but for these high school players that are coming down and you have a large following, wow. And I'd get excited just talking about it.
You just said something that I know a lot of people here in Albuquerque realize, but having been at many college facilities, many NBA arenas, one thing that you don't get, what's the word that you just used about when you come down the ramp for one of those schools?
Adrenaline.
Well, you feel the excitement. You actually feel the vibration of the crowd. You can actually feel the cheering inside the pit. The only place that I've ever felt that same intensity in crowd, maybe to a little bit of a more uptick, was the old Chicago Stadium with the Blackhawks and the Chicago Bulls. That's the only place. But that was an old barn where, you could feel the noise. The pit, even after the renovation, even though it's not as loud as it used to be, that is just a place where you feel the noise. In fact, the last year of the Chicago Stadium, I had a chance to go to Blackhawk and Bulls games, and their battle cry for Chicago Stadium was "Feel the Roar." And that's what you get at the Pit. You actually feel the fans cheering.
One of the things that's signed is you walk down, louder, 3,000 miles, I can't remember the sign, and louder than as
a
you
mile
walk.
High,
mile high,
yeah, mile
and
louder than.
Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah,
dot,
right.
dot, dot. So when you go down and then you come out and man, you know what, as a high school player, remember these are kids.
I
so
know.
How do they feel? And you got to calm them down a little bit in the huddle. Coach got to say, all right, baby, you know what? Let's just play our game. And it's hard to do that because they're very excited, even in
it
warm-ups.
really is.
I'll still say this, in North-South when I was at, I never was a high jumper, but when I was warming up for North-South, I jumped maybe 2 more inches because everyone else is. Now, I never dunked in warm-ups, I couldn't.
Right.
But these other people were, so I'm trying to because the adrenaline factor.
Right.
So I think I got to just mention Chicago Stadium. When I think of that, I think of Norm Van Leer, Tom Borwinkle, Chet Walker,
Yeah,
Bob Love.
that was when I was kids. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't as rabid. It was for hockey. But it wasn't as rabid for basketball until Michael Jordan obviously got there. But I had an opportunity back in the Jordan years to actually cover both the Bulls and Blackhawks. And I'll never forget the first time I went to a Blackhawks game. They have the tradition of cheering during the national anthem. And the guy sitting next to me from a local newspaper said, "Have you ever been to a game? When was the last time you were at a game here?" And I said, "Oh, about 10 years ago." He says, "You're in for a treat." And they were playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. Oh, Canada, everything's normal. Everyone's standing, quiet. Then all of a sudden, the first note of the national anthem, place goes berserk. Wow. And for the longest time, people were saying, "Well, that's disrespectful." I mean, they're hanging American flags over the rafters, and they're cheering. They're not like screaming, yelling. They're like cheering for the national anthem and enthusiastic. Yeah. That's been their tradition since 1986. And people don't know, and it happened during the playoff series against the Edmonton Oilers. I guess it just started and clicked, and they've got it down. The crescendo goes higher and higher during each verse, and I mean, it's really cool. Yeah, it's not orchestrated, but everyone knows what to do. Right. You get louder as the next verse goes on. And,
interesting. I didn't know that.
It's deafening, and then all of a sudden it goes silent at the end. Yeah. Everyone cheers, and it's like, okay, let's play hockey. And
that's definitely a tradition that's unique to them.
But, having said that, Chicago Stadium, I look at that, and ever since my first game at the Pit, I look at those two as equals because, I mean, I've been at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Not as loud as the Pit. Even when it was packed, it's not as loud. I've been to Cameron Indoor. I mean, for the amount of people that are in there, it's loud, or at least it was the game that I went to. But, I'll never forget the first year, and it was before the renovation. It was the very last game. They played Utah, and it was for a share of the tie. Or it was actually to assure having an opportunity because they actually went on the road for the last game at Wyoming and tied for the championship, got a 3-way tie for first, didn't go to the NCAA. But that last game against Utah, I'll never forget Scott Dietrichson saying this is going to be the ultimate Pit game. Utah's in town, first place on the line, 18,000. It was the last game that they had 18,000 in the Pit. And at one point, the crowd was going nuts. And he said, "Okay, take off your headset and see if you can hear me." And we're screaming at each other, and we couldn't hear each other.
That's
we're sitting closer than you and I are, and we're screaming. I mean, talking loud, and we couldn't hear each other because the crowd was that loud. And then he puts the headset back on. He goes, "This is a Pit game."
Wow, you know what? And, I know he worked with you.
Because he talked to me. He talked to me in the headset. Said, "Take your headset off to see if you can hear me." And we're like yelling back and forth. I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable.
Right. Yeah.
We had a couple of games that were similar that year, but that was the biggest game and the loudest crowd that I had ever heard at the Pit.
And you went to a lot of games. I was there when they played Georgetown in '83. You should have heard that noise. Arizona, UNLV in 1976.
I'll tell you what, you bring up Arizona, and sorry to interrupt you, but you bring up Arizona. I've seen it on YouTube, and you can actually hear how loud it is on the TV. And when you can hear how loud something is on TV, that means it is extremely loud, because usually they tone down the crowd mics so it's not overbearing. And that last second shot, you heard, and it's like, wow.
But when nuts,
I would have loved to have been there, because I guarantee you that was even louder than the night that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to a game in '77 when the Lobos had Michael Cooper and they played Syracuse. Jim Boeheim came here for the Lobo Invitational. That was one of the loudest crowds I ever heard, ever. And those media seats that are media seats now were student seats then.
Right.
And I still say when the Lobos, in that year, '77, '78, that might have been the loudest, pit crowds we ever saw. Honest to God.
Yeah, and it's something when they get going. The other part that I remember before we move on is San Diego State was in town, and one of their guys was at the line, chance to win the game. He misses the first free throw. Second free throw, it was deafening because they yelled so loud. I mean, you could almost feel the building shake, or at least the floor shake, because the yelling was so loud. He misses the free throw. Lobos end up winning that game.
Oh, there's so
many. That was that same year.
So many pit stories, so many. In high school, I think we have the largest attended tournament in the 50 states, I'm pretty sure, or one of the highest attended tournaments. Indiana might be up there too, but anytime there's March Madness in the pit,
right.
And, they look for matchups, you might see Shiprock and Hope Girls again, and I think they had, again, there's a lot of basketball to be played. We're not saying that, but last year they had, 10,000 for that game? So, yeah, you never know.
Let's go over the 2A now in girls. So we're going to look at that bracket. You got Tatum, Mescalero Apache on the bottom. Oh, good look at Ed there. So there we go. Texaco, 2A. Okay, there we are. You're confusing me, Alden. Logan is number 2, and Lordsburg is number 3. Got to give the guys a hard time when we can, right?
Yeah, again,
they do such a great job. But the one thing, and I want to say this on the air, Alden, and Jason, and everyone, the graphics on the selection seating show were off the chart. These brackets and everything look awesome.
Now, you know what? And look at them. You're absolutely right. They do a great job with that. They really do. And there's a good look at that's the 2A girls. 2A girls bracket there. Good look there at that bracket again. Manny Lucero and Richard Tripp so much more. But look where Cliff's number 14. Thought they would have a higher seed, but they're number 14 there. And the number 1 seed. You know what? You mentioned Melrose, but in 2A girls, look at Tatum, where Tatum's at. And then on the other side, you have Logan. So Tatum and Logan have played for some championships in the past.
They have.
And, that's not saying
I want to say I've done at least one of them. So
right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that, we're saying that number 1 and number 2, because there's some look at number 9, Mora is good. And number 8 and number 9, Rama and Mora. That should be a very good first round matchup. Fort Sumner and House, they've combined against Dora. It used to be just Fort Sumner, and then House had their own separate. Now it's Fort Sumner / House.
Right.
So there's some really good matchups there in that 2A girls bracket as well. Magdalena at number 10. Magdalena coached by Wally Sanchez. Wally used to coach at St. Pius Boys, Santa Fe Boys, assistant at Las Lunas. He's been with that program at Magdalena now for about 8 or 10 years. There was a time I played for Coach Sanchez. Coach Sanchez was a driver, and I couldn't believe that, he was mean with us. So I was kind of wondering how girls would take him. But he's been there at Magdalena for a long time and has done a wonderful job.
3A girls now. The bracket looks as follows on 3A, and you got Eunice at the top, Tularosa number 4 at the bottom of that bracket. Texaco is number 2, and Tehachapi is number 3. And, this is a wide open division too.
Yes, it most certainly is. And Eunice, they played, we've gone through the rankings all year, and I believe they've been, and you know what? Texaco Wolverines under head coach Richard Luscombe. Richard Luscombe, the former Eastern New Mexico Greyhound. He always has them playing very well. Texaco is a very, very good team. So, you've got a lot of good matchups there in the first round. Dexter, keep an eye on them. Cuba gets in at a number 8. Laguna Acoma, they travel well against McCurdy. So, Tularosa, Santa Rosa. There's some really, you never know. Again, we don't know what kind of upsets are going to happen. But Eunice has been on top, I believe, with the rankings that we've had. I'm pretty sure they've been on top for most of the most of the season.
Let's go to 4A now, and in 4A, we're a little more familiar with these teams, or at least I am at least. Hope Christian, number 1. Portales, number 4. Shiprock, number 2. Robertson, number 3. And, you know, when you look at Hope Christian potentially going against Portales, on both the boys and the girls, this is an outstanding matchup.
Well, Hope Christian has beat the girls at Portales, I believe, twice. Portales was hit with some graduation. You know, they lost some really good players.
Right.
But one of the questions, or one of the things, and we mentioned this the other night, the number 8 Sandia Prep against Wingate, Maddie Traynor for Sandia Prep is one a prolific scorer as there is in the state. You know, so that matchup kind of interested me, and you know, and then you got Shiprock on the other side, and we did mention this on Sunday, Scott, Shiprock and Santa Fe Indian. That game there, you talk about atmosphere and crowds. That's going to be a very well-attended game.
Shiprock brings it when it comes to fan support, and I know Santa Fe Indian does as well. But I'm very familiar with Shiprock bringing a lot of fans. So.
I'll tell you what, that's an exciting matchup to me. Well, here's the thing that I mentioned out of this bracket the other day. Hope is the defending 2-time champions, and we talked about, you know, Hannah Valencia, Olivia Lewis, Brill Milford. But here's the thing that they're playing for. Coach Terry Heisey, it's his last season, so I believe there's some extra motivation there. I really do. And they're still my favorite in that bracket. And they played very well. Now, Roger Holian, our colleague, your colleague, everyone's, you know, he's done a great job with us on Proview and being the color guy. He'll tell you that, hey, they've had a large schedule of 6A teams. The last team that they lost to was the West Mesa Mustangs in January.
Wow.
So the Huskies are streaking. They're streaking.
And that was a game that they were mad about losing.
No, you know what? you know, yes, they were very upset. they hate to lose. They do. And you know what? I want people on my team that hate to lose. I don't want anybody that's happy about it.
And I say that because, you know, we'll talk about this later about the Lobo baseball team and even the basketball team. You lose, you should be mad.
Right.
And as long as you kind of taper your anger, that builds you to become better later. And I think that's the motivation that Hope Christian has used.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I think they played with a little bit of a chip, a little bit of anger. So that's still my favorite because, like I said, Olivia Lewis, I like her a lot. She's a big force, a big presence, and not only, you know, she big inside. She's going to get the rebounding. I don't know how many rebounds that girl gets a game. It's got to be 10 or 12. She'll score, but you know, she'll protect the rim. The other thing I like is sometimes she brings the ball up against the press. You can use her as a guard too.
Right.
So there's so many positions that she plays, and you know, we mentioned Hannah Valencia. That's one of the best guards in that class. Brill Milford came back. They're very well balanced team. So I really like that team.
Let's look at 5A now, and in 5A, some teams that we're familiar with as well. Roswell is number 1. You got Albuquerque Academy at number 4. Bloomfield drop all the way to number 8. That's dangerous for Lovington. That's dangerous for anyone else that plays them because, you know, they were tinkering with being number 2 and 3 for much of the season. Now all of a sudden they're an 8 seed. You got Espanola Valley number 3, Los Lunas number 2, and remember it was Bloomfield that beat Los Lunas in their tournament, Los Lunas tournament, and then they lost to Volcano Vista. So this is a team. I'm looking at number 8 as a potential sleeper.
You know, that's a very good point.
And I say that sleeper, you and I both did their games. They're excellent.
I really like that team a lot. But if you remember, since that tournament out there in Valencia, and that was in December, if you look where they've, you know, again, they dropped and Los Lunas rose. Because when I saw that game, I saw Los Lunas and head coach Marty Zeller's team, you know, in December, I got to say, I was thinking, well, they might struggle.
Right.
They don't, you know, Jordan Holland was gone. They didn't have the 3-point shooters. But that's a testament to Coach Marty Zeller and what a good coach he is. He's got them at the number 2 seed. So David Medina, that's a, you know, David Medina's number 10 with Del Norte, a matchup against Kirtland Central. But you know, I got to say that. I think you're right about Bloomfield. The other team I looked at was the Albuquerque Academy Chargers. Taryn Batches has done a wonderful job there. You know, they had a couple of down years there at Academy. She's got them in as a number 4.
Yeah, that's a team that's gotten better and better, too.
Right. St. Pius at a number 6, Maya Trujillo. She's one of the best players in the metro area, no doubt about it. They barely lost to Los Lunas last Saturday in the district championship by 2. But you know what? They did lose. I talked to Joe Abeda. He's covered several of Espanola Valley girls games, and he says Espanola Valley at 3 is a very tough out. So it's some good matchups there in the 5A girls.
And you mentioned Marty Zeller. I mean, look at what he's done. Losing his top scorer a year ago to graduation, all he's done is become a number 2 seed.
I think that's
I don't think
testament.
anyone saw that coming. We knew that they were going to be good, but he's got them really playing well.
You know, when I saw them, again, they were just starting the season. You know, you saw them too, and I said to myself, they're going to struggle. But again, they started out where they were, and look where they're at now. He's got them to a number 2. I think that's, again, the guy's a former coach at Grants. You know, he's got a tall, imposing, intimidating figure. He really is, if you're an official on the floor. And I've been, officiated a lot of his games. But what an excellent coach he is, and he's proven it every year. They are always playing well in February.
And 6A on the girls' side, this is always a fun one, and even more so this year. Hobbs ended up the number 1 seed. What a story that was. Carlsbad, who Hobbs needed to beat twice, once in the end of the regular season, then they had a playoff the next day, so they beat them twice in 2 days to get that number 1 seed. And then you got Las Cruces at number 4, West Mesa holding serve at number 3. What's the injury report on West Mesa? Do they have any of their players back?
It's guard Esperanza Vados that has the knee issue. And you know what? You know, Sebastian Noel does a lot of PA for West Mesa. He knows West Mesa better than anybody. You know, they still have Mariah Burke and Jaden Castellano. Emily, they still have some Emily Burke, I'm sorry. They still have some very good players. But the way I look at it, I've only covered them once. And I've been reading about them. Esperanza Vados is the one that makes that train go, in my opinion. Now, Sebastian thinks that, maybe they'd be okay without her. I don't know. I think just the way, there's somebody that, in other words, they're all very good passers. But she's the one that brings it out, runs the offense, gets everybody involved. She's the distributor. You need someone, the glue. Now, I'm not saying they'd lose without her, but I haven't seen an update from journal writer James Yotis regarding her injury. I haven't seen anything. Maybe tomorrow. But they had said they didn't know if she was going to play the first round. She might be ready for state if they win. And so that's been, to me, Scott, that's been the story of 6A are the West Mesa Mustangs. I don't think there's any question about it.
If it gets to the semifinals, though, more than likely, in my opinion, they would have to play Carlsbad. I don't see anyone else beating Carlsbad besides Hobbs. And even with Esperanza Barros, no offense to West Mesa, who has done a marvelous job this year, I'm still shocked at seeing Carlsbad at number 2 because they're that good, and that says how good Hobbs is. Because I've been picking Carlsbad to win the 6A championship all season long. I'm not going to fray from that. I think we're going to see a Hobbs-Carlsbad matchup in the championship.
Adam Deal said this on Sunday that, in this class here, the trophy's kind of headed towards the south, he thought. And I think you're right. Carlsbad came in here in December and really put a licking on La Cueva. I remember that. They pressed them, and they were really playing well at that time. But it's going to be hard to beat either one of those teams. You never know. Like I said, we're looking at the bracket here.
Well, they have size. They have speed. I'll never forget last year. I was doing a boys game, Carlsbad and Volcano Vista. Walk in, there's a girls game. I didn't realize that they were doing girls-boys. I'm all, well, what level is this? And someone at Volcano Vista said, oh, this is varsity. I look up at the scoreboard, Volcano Vista, and mind you, this is the year the Volcano Vista won the championship. They're down by 20. And I'm all, huh? Carlsbad's that good? And then I'm watching them, and 1 through 9, and they basically got the same players this year that they had last year. They had size, they had speed, they're good shooters, and like you said, they press the entire game.
That tells you something.
Now, I haven't seen Hobbs in
What does that tell you about Hobbs, though?
That's what I'm saying. I haven't seen Hobbs, so they've got to have the same elements, because for them to beat Carlsbad 2 straight, that means they're awfully doggone good, too, because I thought Carlsbad was going to run the table, quite honestly, but Hobbs put a monkey wrench into that.
Yeah, so whoever faces those two teams in those brackets, it's going to be tough. You never know. We talk about upsets, and, anything can happen. But just the way you describe Carlsbad, I didn't see them last year, but I've read about them. That's going to be tough for any Albuquerque team or any team who plays them, period.
I mean, I was surprised that they didn't win it last year, because they were that good and they passed the eye test, and they've improved. So, but then again, there's a lot of good teams here in this area. I mean, Rio Rancho comes to mind. You got Cibola, you got Volcano Vista, you got West Mesa, obviously, and even Sandia's playing well. So, I mean, there's some teams that might match up, but it comes down, and El Dorado's another one, but it comes down to matchups.
Yeah, you're right.
And
You're right.
Carlsbad or Hobbs are a tough matchup. So,
tough out for anybody. You're absolutely
so it's gonna come down to matchups. We're gonna take a break here, and we will come back with more on the Sports Desk.
Want to eat at a great New Mexico restaurant? Then go to dinenm.com and get a true New Mexico dining experience. We're dedicated to promoting New Mexico-owned restaurants. We advertise restaurant specials, events, and deals all in one place. No need to sign up, sign in, or print out a coupon. Just show your smartphone to your waiter. It's free and easy to use, so find a new special place and enjoy New Mexico's fabulous restaurants. Download the app and visit us online at dinenm.com today.
Folks, there's no other way but to be all in. Either he's Lord of all or he is not Lord at all. And you can experience the real and authentic, true life change that only God can provide to humanity. See, when we truly encounter Jesus and purpose to know him and follow his teachings, hashtag life change will occur.
Sure, you could get him a new car. You could also light a pile of money on fire. So maintaining this old car is your best option. Keep it running longer, stronger, with quality parts and a whole lot of Napa know-how.
Sinners and Saints, a proud sponsor of Proview Sports and New Mexico Youth Athletics. Start your evening off right with a delicious menu selection like the Sinners Smothered Fries with pulled pork and green chili. Always prepared with fresh, never frozen ingredient. Catch all the sports action from college, pros, and MMA on one of our 35 HD TVs. Sinners and Saints, the friendliest sports bar in Albuquerque.
Altitude Sports Grill is where Albuquerque's sports fans won't miss a game. With locally crafted brews on tap and refreshingly crisp cocktails. Located in Hotel Cascada, Albuquerque residents find a staycation worth staying for. Catching Lobo sports, enjoying a beer on the beach, or wiping out, Hotel Cascada is home to your urban adventure. Affordable guest rooms, no hassle water park parties, and much more.
Visit the Frontier Restaurant. Due to heavy construction on Central, take lead or coal coming north or south. The Frontier Restaurant. Get your Frontier fix on.
Want to eat at a great New Mexico restaurant? Then go to dinenm.com and get a true New Mexico dining experience. We're dedicated to promoting New Mexico-owned restaurants. We advertise restaurant specials, events, and deals all in one place. No need to sign up, sign in, or print out a coupon. Just show your smartphone to your waiter. It's free and easy to use, so find a new special place and enjoy New Mexico's fabulous restaurants. Download the app and visit us online at dinenm.com today.
And we are back here on the Sports Desk. Scott Coletti along with Ed Nunez. The crew is here. Alden Ioane and David Davis doing a great job as always. And Ed, we're going to go now to the boys. We're going to go through 1 through 6A, the brackets, and we'll go to 1A first. And, you know, it's always a fun time of year. Quemado is number 1, Hondo Valley number 4, Maxwell 2, Melrose 3, and, you know, Melrose another team. You know, you look at this division, I would have to say that they might be the team to beat.
Yeah, you know what?
They got the tradition.
No doubt about it. That's a great looking bracket there. And I was trying to think about Hondo Valley.
I love the Buffalo mascot, too, by the way.
Well, yeah. You know, a couple years ago, Hondo Valley had a really, just 2 years ago, really tough team.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the coach's name, but he does a great job out there. And Cliff. No, the Cliff's not in this bracket, right? No, they're not in this one. You talked about Melrose at 3. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough out for anybody there with I'm just looking at the team names here. And, yeah, Quemado again. I think they've been number 1 out the whole season as well. Yeah. So, yeah, well, that's a very good bracket there. Evangel Christian comes in at number 7. They've got a game against Floyd. That's always a tough game as well to travel. Well, Floyd will be coming up here to Albuquerque to play him up here. So, yeah, it's an interesting bracket there.
2A on the boys' side, and we will look at this one. And you got Magdalena number 1, Fort Sumner House number 4, Lordsburg number 2, and Mora number 3. And I would have to say that Magdalena would be the team to beat, and they would be my pick.
Undefeated all year, okay? Undefeated. I talked to Coach Boatman at Manal last week. They lost to Magdalena in the district championship. They lost by, he said, 10. I think they played them 3 times, and I think one time they lost very close. You know, I like what Manal has. The big guy, Michael O, Sammy Paragas, Danny Serrano. They've got a good team there at Manal. But you know, if you look at Magdalena, they were good last year. So, you know, Cliff comes in, and Cliff has been a powerhouse, man. So they lost Hoyt Shelley, the big center. So they barely get in at 16. And then they lost Brian Schock. Brian Schock, the head coach, went to Alamogordo. And I think Cliff has been coached by a Schock going back to Hall of Fame coach Pete Schock for how many years? I mean, it must be
forever. And
then Brian Schock had his wife as his assistant, which I mean, my son and I were looking like we admire that. You know, it's hard. You know, it's hard sometimes to work with husband, wives. You know, in anything, but particularly as coaches. And so Cliff gets in at a 16. They're still in the tournament, but it's been many years since you know, they weren't top ranked or anything you know, near the top.
3A boys now, and in 3A, we will look at that. Pecos is number 1, Dulce is number 4, Texaco 2, Santa Rosa is number 3. Your thoughts?
Well, Cuba, I look at Cuba, number 5, and one of our cameramen, Ron Molina, went to Cuba. You know, and I'm looking at that first round matchup that Laguna Acoma go to Cuba. And he liked Cuba's team. He thinks they had 20 wins this year. So, you know, Cuba's looking much better than they have in the past. So there's some definitely good matchups as well there. Desert Academy against Dulce, that should be a good matchup. Pecos, the number 1 seed. And and Texaco there, you got Texaco. You know what? I'll tell you what, I covered Texaco the last 3 years. They've always had good players, good athletes. So, you know, Texaco and Pecos, the class of that class are the number 1 and 2 seeds, and you might see them go against each other in the championship.
4A. We'll look at the 4A. And in 4A, your champion is Hope Christian, next bracket. No, I'm just kidding. They have to play through, but, you know, how can you go against Hope?
No, we talked about this at length on Sunday. Now, give Portales a lot of credit. You know, it had been 4 years since the Huskies had lost a district game, and that tidbit was given to me by Manny Lucero. I didn't know that. So, you know, I happened to ask him. He said it had been 4 years. So give the Rams credit. You know, they did beat them in the district championship. But for me, you know, apparently Marcus Medina didn't play much, and Longmire was in foul trouble. But you know what? It happens. I'm not one to use excuses, and I know Jim Murphy very well. He wouldn't use it either. But you know what? If the Portales, you know, we put this all on Hope. Like, well, Hope wasn't on their game. Hope had foul trouble. Give the Rams credit. I'm not giving them enough credit for beating Hope. They did beat them. They're the number 2 seed. You know, West Las Vegas has had moments this year. But as far as strength of teams, we've seen it. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. They're still my favorite because of the overall balance they have, the way they play defense. The defense, I had a very good look at them when they played Pius. You know, I do PA for St. Pius. You know, the way they switch, the way they hedge out, their first dribble defense, it might be some of the best in the state. They're being coached by a Hall of Fame coach. We're seeing a Hall of Fame coach right in front of our face. We don't look at it like that because he's 54 years old. He's a young guy still. So Hope Christian, people want to know, why do they win? Well, as long as they have Jim Murphy patrolling the sidelines, they're going to be pretty darn tough. I'm not saying they're going to come out of that bracket, but they're my overwhelming favorites still.
I'm going to go with Hope. I mean, yeah, Portales may have beaten them, but like you said, it didn't hurt their seeding. It didn't hurt anything. The only thing that Portales can do, they can play them in the championship. That would be an outstanding championship. What it did do, though, in my opinion, is it kind of moved things around because you got West Las Vegas in the same bracket as Hope. That means we won't see a Hope West Las Vegas championship, but we could see them playing the semis.
You know what? Last year they played, the last 2 years in the championship?
2 years, yeah.
And look, you know, people, you know, you and I talked about this earlier in the year. You know, the mystery, as Las Vegas solved the mystery. There's no mystery. I said this again, that Hope has a better team. That's not a knock on David Bustos, who does a great job at West Las Vegas. They're great. They're good. They're a good program. They have very good players. Hope is a better team. That's just the bottom line. As far as, Jim Murphy can bring off Chris Ward off the bench. I thought Chris Ward towards the end of the season, his athleticism, this kid is an athlete. The way he rebounds, holy cow. He almost let the air out of the ball the way he just crunches that ball. So they just, they have J.J. Ortiz, Preston Ulubadi.
I like Ulubadi also because he can shoot the lights out and he can drive the floor.
Right.
But during the Hope tournament, saw him penetrate and against Albuquerque High right after that tournament, or just before that tournament, I should say, penetrated against the Bulldogs. So
Cole, you're out. They're loaded. Yeah. It's not because Colin Evans, the freshman, 6'6", he's a budding star. Yeah. They've got 9 guys they can go to. So
Colin Evans might be the next Jordan Leak.
You know what?
Because he's got the size to be.
Yeah, Aaron Wells, a couple years ago, was 6'7", was a very good player for Hope. So that's why. They've got the players, they're coached well. That's why. So they're my favorite in 4A.
Let's go to 5A now on the boys' side. And in 5A, you got Roswell number 1, Espanola Valley number 4, Capital 2, and Farmington 3. You got Los Lunas at number 6. We saw them play Ed, and they are a very solid team. And Berlin, the scary team, because we've seen in the rankings every week, they've been anywhere between 3 and 7. So they end up getting a 5 seed, and it's all about peaking at the right time. And again, these playoffs are all about matchups.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. I had a good look at Berlin. I saw them against Pius. It's a physical, defensive, physically, a very physical team. They have hands on you. They'll, they bust the cutters. Same thing with Los Lunas. That's why when they play, it's 44-41, 44-39. There's very low scoring on either team. So if I look, Capital, they were in the championship last year against Espanola Valley. Ben Gomez brings them back, and they lose Eric Coca to Northern New Mexico. He's playing for Northern New Mexico up there, Ryan Cordova.
Looked good when I saw him play against New Mexico State out at Santa Ana Star Center. I'll tell you what, he will be a very, very good college player. Yeah, I think he went to a good school for him, and I think he's going to be a star.
Yeah, no question. So Ben Gomez has them back at the number 2 seed. You know what? The game that interests me, and Grants comes in as an 11. They had a very good semifinal. They made it to the semifinals last year. They have a player, Matt Vale, who's as offensively proficient as any player in the state. He'll spin, he'll drive, he'll shoot the threes. I'm interested to see how Travis Julian and the Los Lunas Tigers defend him. I'm really interested to see because they're physical, they get after you, they'll switch, they'll use multiple players on him. So I'm very interested to see, again, Travis Julian, they did 23-5. So if I'm Coach Julian, I'm like, man, we got a 6? I know why. Adam Deal did a great job of breaking down why would that happen. But still, I use that as motivation to my team. I'm like, look, we're 23-5, and I think they won 10 in a row. I'm not sure how many they won in a row, and we got a 6. I would use that as motivation.
Let's go now, speaking of 6 to 6A. And in 6A, you've got Oñate getting that number 1 seed. El Dorado number 4, very dangerous there. Las Cruces number 2. Cleveland number 3, and let's talk about some of the others, Ed. You got Atrisco number 8. I like them because they have overall size and good depth. Rio Rancho at number 5, right where Wally Salata wants you. They're not as low as last year, but a number 5 seed. They're playing Volcano Vista, and I'll tell you what, Rio Rancho matches up extremely well against Volcano Vista. I was at their last game when they played in the regular season at Volcano Vista, and I think it's just a matchup problem for Volcano Vista for them to match up with the shooting. They can go head-to-head with Cormier, but when it comes to outside shooting, yeah, Volcano Vista has a couple of snipers out there, but when you get Rio Rancho rolling, they're hard to stop. And remember last year, what was the thing about Rio Rancho? They hit shots, and they hit shot after shot after shot. You've got to match them. And this time of year, you were asking about you talking with Wally on whether or not they could get the job done and had a run in them. He's got the team that's made for a run because he's got the shooters. He's got a little bit of inside presence and with Amali and Reyes, and mainly it's the shooters. And when you got Juan Hurd out there, who are you going to foul?
It's a good point.
Guy's a free throw machine.
Right.
And by the way, a couple of guys named Patterson are pretty doggone good too.
You know, you got Clay Patterson, who averages 20. Juan Hurt averages 20. The guy that I really like is Jeremy Snyder. Jeremy Snyder's a hustler. I really like Jeremy Snyder.
Yes, he is.
You know, I just think there's a bunch of problems there. You know, and here's the other thing. Volcano Vista, you mentioned that. They had their moments. Everyone had some moments in that district except Piedra Vista. But Volcano Vista, on the Resvey Hill earlier in the year, you know, he's hitting his shots. After a while, defenses started making him a defensive priority and chasing him off that three-point line. Dion Battle hit a freshman wall. So Volcano has struggled. I'm kind of interested to see what changes Greg Brown has in store. He's had a week to think about it. You know, they've been struggling. They've lost 5 of 6. And you know, when you're trending that way towards the end of the season, sometimes players just think, hey, I just want this season to be over. So I kind of want to see how the Hawks come out Saturday night at Rio Rancho.
All right, couple of pictures to show you right now as we talk about what happened over the weekend. Lobos in Dallas, the baseball team, they lost 2 out of 3. They lost a tough one, 5-2 in game 1. They won game 2, 6-5. They were down 4-1 in the 9th inning, and they ended up scoring 3 runs to go to extra innings. They score 2 more runs. You take a look at Dallas Baptist Ballpark. And yeah, that's what $30 million will get for you. By the way, they're going to put in a new video board next year. But,
holy cow.
But yeah, it's an outstanding play. It's basically modeled after the ballpark in Arlington where the Rangers played. The same developer, the same builders built it, and that's what you get. So outstanding place. But Lobos lost that last game 7-6, and then they went to Lubbock, where yesterday, Tuesday, as we are actually filming our show here on Wednesday for a change, and there you see Texas Tech. The background you couldn't see afterwards with the dust storm that they had yesterday, 40-mile-an-hour winds by the time the game was over. Texas Tech ends up winning 7-2. And for David Davis, who's a big-time Mavericks and pro fan in Dallas, the quick look at American, there's the video board in right field, by the way. Quick look at American Airlines Center in Dallas. Had a chance to go see the Pelicans of New Orleans, and the Dallas Mavericks. Had a chance to meet up with a friend of mine, Joel Myers, who has been on national TV and did the Lakers for many years, worked on ESPN. But there you get a look at that place, and I'll tell you what, it is unbelievable. Well, I guess we have a little more time than I thought, so let's go back to that Texas Tech slide. The second one, actually, you see that the video board. I want to show you that because Dallas Baptist is going to get a video board exactly like that. When the batter comes up, you see his picture. On the left side, which is the red part, you actually see the picture of the pitcher.
Oh wow!
And so like, and then switch it around. When the Lobos were batting, like Luis Gonzalez comes up, that red part would have Luis Gonzalez, and then the big part will always have the home team. They would have their pitcher, but it would have the picture and the stats of the opposing pitcher and the stats of what was going on. I mean, I felt like I was at a pro game yesterday because of the way they run that board. But you know, Texas Tech is big time, and you know, their stadium is bigger than Dallas Baptist. Dallas Baptist, they said they wanted to do it right. And they did, and now let's go back to the Maverick slides real quick. And you know, the NBA, Ed, has changed. 2 years ago, I was in Phoenix doing a Pelicans-Phoenix Suns game for a demo, and I had a chance to visit up with some people. Every time the ball hits the rim, you hear a sound effect over the loudspeaker. And at first, I thought it was a sound effect. It's actually a distorted sound of a ball hitting a rim or a switch. And to me, it doesn't seem real.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing when you have that sound effect on TV, doing a TV broadcast, to kind of give a feel of the people watching at home. But when you're in the building and all of a sudden you hear gunk or whatever, you know, and it almost sounds like a drummer, you know, doing a drum roll. To me, it didn't seem like it was real. I felt like I was at a Harlem Globetrotters game and the Washington Generals were the other team or something. To me, I'm sitting as a fan and it's like, yeah, they want to make it entertaining, but don't make it fake. To me, it sounded fake.
I think you're right. I remember when I used to watch the NBA in the 70s. I started watching the 70s, and they had the microphone. You know, you could hear the shots being missed. But I think you're right about that, and you're right. Make it real, man.
So that's our show for today. We will do it next week, I guess. From what Adam's saying, we're going to be able to do a show live from the pit, so that ought to be fun.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to join you for that, but it should be fun. You're right.
So for Ed Nunez and the crew, Alden Iowani and David Davis, I'm Scott Coletti. So long. Talk to you next week on the Sports Desk.